Hi, I'm Mary Valamides, and I'm going to go over the third grade, 6 weeks, mathematics curriculum preview. The big ideas for the 6 weeks is you're going to be teaching area, perimeter, time, liquid, volume, and weight, and then graphs. You'll have a couple of days for financial literacy as well. Notice during this time, February the 27th will be our first day of the 6 weeks, and there will be a math CBA. Notice this calendar. It goes with the pacing guide. I'm not telling you to do this day by day, just as it's here. This is just a suggestion, just a suggested calendar. But what I do want you to look at is the text. So notice you're going to have 4 days to teach 3.6c, and which covers area. Now let's look at how this relates to second grade. Second grade started area, but their big concept was to cover an object, to cover a rectangle with objects without having any gaps or overlaps. And they were learning how to use a number with the unit. So now in third grade, we're taking it a step further, and the fact that you're decomposing figures and you're finding area with multiplication and finding area without having all the side links in some cases. So notice 360, C, and E. These are in the order that they're going to be taught. Now, as you determine the area, notice this example. It does have grids here. On the STAR test, it won't have all the grids. It's very possible that it'll just have one side of a grid, possibly the bottom, and then going up and possibly over. So some of the outer borders may be included. For example, with this particular shape, the example shows that it was broken or decomposed in this way. However, you could have also decomposed it by having a line going across here to where you have 3 rectangles that are shaped a little differently, but still will have the same result of the area. Now on 3.6d, and anytime we do area with third grade, we would not have any half squares. It will be only complete squares. In Texas Go Math, they do show grids on all of their examples. And we have the same issue with Engaging Math as well. Please expose your kids to the possibility of not having a grid. Notice on our ninth lowest scoring item, they did not have grids. They just had the border showing so that the kids could hopefully see that this is 4 times 4 in this little part of the rectangle, and that this is 4 times, and then they'll have to count and find that part. So they may have to use multiplication to figure out what each of these lengths would be, the area. So notice here it says in 3.6c, number of rows times the number of unit squares in each row. So this is where they may have to use multiplication. And that's spotted as well here when TEA gave us a little bit more supporting information. Notice where it says that students may be expected to use multiplication to determine the area of a rectangle instead of counting squares. So do activities 1 and 2 of Engaging Math, pages 168 to 171, to fill this expectation. Now 3.6c, this is our 19th lowest item. Again, notice how this rectangle looks very similar to the one earlier, where just the border is shown, or part of the border. Also notice this was a griddable item, and yet it was an area model with a griddable item. Makes it a little bit more difficult. Now the 18th lowest scoring item was number 39, again 3.6c. Notice the kids did not have a figure to even look at. They had to read the problem and then multiply. 3.6c, the kids are decomposing 2 congruent two-dimensional figures into parts with equal areas and express the area of each part as a unit fraction of the whole. And recognize that equal shares of identical wholes need not have the same shape. So if you notice this, each one of them are showing 1/2, but notice that rectangle A doesn't have the same size for 1/2 as rectangle B. they look different. But in this case, we're showing 1/4. And there again, even though it's the same area, they each have 16 square units, the outer border or the rectangular shape looks different. And here's another example where we could have 1/4. Notice that we have triangular shapes in this square to demonstrate 1/4, and they're not even next to each other. And that's still the same amount of area as the other items. In our supporting information, it also shows how this square can be cut in half either into 2 triangles or 2 rectangles. However, there's still 2 congruent halves. Notice this is not covered at all in Texas Go Math. So please use Engaging Math Activities 1 and 2 in pages 178 and 181. 360, which we just looked at, was not assessed on 2016 STAR. Could be this coming year, but it wasn't last year. So here are some activities you might want to use. Then perimeter, we have 4 days for perimeter. Notice it is broken up with 2 days, then we have spring break, and then another 2 days. So with perimeter, the kids need to determine the perimeter of a polygon or a missing length when given perimeter and remaining side lengths in problems. So there's 2 different ways they can determine perimeter. So this is a case where they have the missing length, and here as well. In our supporting information from TEA, it says that our side lengths should be whole numbers. So therefore we would not have fractions in this part of our text. And also determine a missing side length of a polygon when given a perimeter of the polygon and the remaining side lengths is expected. So when you use, when we take the test, and even on CBAs, use the STAR reference chart. Now notice the very first bullet, do a lesson 17.3 in Texas Go Math, because it's the only lesson that covers this portion of the text of determining the missing side of a polygon. Also, Engaging Math Activity, pages 190 and 191, also covers this. To challenge your kids, you might want to use these problems and see what they come up with, and they can explain to the class how they solve their problem. Now, this is the 5th lowest scoring item. Notice that, again, the kids need to draw the figure and then write down the side lengths that they do know to help them figure out the missing side length. Here's another item that was tested on STAR. Notice in this case there are 2 or more figures that the kids are going to have to choose that has 54 millimeters. But this particular item, it's a release sample item, but it shows that there is a missing link, a missing side. So we'll end the 6 weeks with Unit 10, Time, Liquid, Volume, and Weight. Notice that there's 8 days for this particular portion. 3 days is time, 3 days for capacity and volume, and 2 days for weight. And then after that, we'll have graphing, and then 1 day of financial literacy. So time, notice with time we have addition and subtraction of time intervals in minutes. Here you can use pictorial models or tools such as an elapsed time ruler to figure out the time elements, or a number line. Here's an example of how you can use a time ruler. This is a circular version, however you should have the manipulative version as well. And notice how we can use our number lines to help us with time. Here is the elapsed time ruler that you should have, that as a manipulative that you received a year or 2 ago. And then also you could use the ESC lesson 3.7C with telling time. The 17th lowest scoring item on our STAR test last year was this example. Notice that first we're given that he put a cake in the oven or a ham in the oven at 4:45, and it was in there for 15 minutes. And then he put the ham and cake in the oven together for 60 minutes. So notice we have to add these two together, and using a number line helps for the students to see that the final time is 6 o'clock. Fractions and measurement, there's only one day of it. Notice we have 3.7a and 3.3b. 3.3b helps us with understanding how to find numbers on a number line, which relates well with fractions in measurement. So here we have fractions and how the kids can determine the half increments, the fourth increments, and the eighth increment on a number line. And here's a few more examples. This will come in handy when the kids are measuring later. In second grade, the kids did learn how to measure with linear measurement using customary rulers, yardsticks, and measuring tapes. Notice that we'll now go into more depth with this with fractions. In second grade, they only went to the nearest whole unit. In third grade, we will delve into fractions with it as well. These two texts were not assessed in 2016, however, they could be this year. Then liquid volume and capacity, we have 2 days. You'll have to determine the correct units to use, and here we have some examples and some problem situations. This is a release sample item for 3.7D. Notice this one was not tested with liquid volume last year. And then weight, customary, and metric unit for 2 days. Notice we have weight and the possible units of measure. And here we're looking at how much space it takes up, which is capacity, versus how much it weighs. This is our 6th highest scoring item. And again with 3.7e, we'll need to know the tools to use with liquid volume and for weight. 3.7e was not assessed on the 2016 STAR. And then 3.3b, again, this is where this is coming in again, to use fractions to help us find the nearest unit and fractional part. 3.3b was not assessed in 2016. So Unit 11, data analysis, we have 7 days, and notice we'll have just one more day after that for financial literacy. During this time, we'll be looking at frequency tables, dot plots, pictographs, and bar graphs. Notice they will have scaled intervals, and then also we'll be solving problems, 1- and 2-step problems. And again, the pictograph or bar graph could have scaled intervals. So here's an example, a 3.8a. Notice we can have a portion divided in half, only part of it showing, knowing that if this smiley face is 2 votes, then a half would be 1 vote. 3.a was the highest scoring item for number 5. Notice we're just representing the information, just transferring it from the frequency chart to a dot plot. However, this was a lower scoring item. Notice here the kids had to use the information from the tables and relate it to the graph, the bar graph. Now, third grade is the first grade that introduces tables, so part of this issue may be being able to read a table. So you might want to make sure when you cover this to truly go over how to read a table. This is a STAR released item for 3.8a that you could use with the kids to show them this particular concept. Then 3.8b is problem solving with graphing. Notice that this is again where the interval, this time it means 20 pounds. I've never seen it for that many before, so having that as well as it being a griddable item probably is part of the issue of making it the 4th lowest scoring item. However, notice this was 20, so therefore this must be 10. So please expose your kids to this information to let them know that it doesn't have to be just 1 or 2 for the intervals. It could be as high as 20 or more. Personal financial literacy, we only have 1 day on it, and this is our 7th scoring lowest item. Notice basically this is based on just what would not affect the money, so this is more on the vocabulary. that's included with financial literacy. These are the new words versus the review from earlier in the year or in prior grade levels. So these are the new words you'll be sharing with the kids the 6 weeks. Here's 4 more activities you can do with them. Of course, you can do the previous activities as well, but I just wanted to share with you some different activities. So one more thing I'd like to share with you is the STAR blueprint has changed. Notice there's 14 lower items than before. There's only 32 total test items. Here's a comparison that I've made for you. The readiness items standards stay the same as did the supporting standards. The number of those are still the same. And we'll still have 60 to 65% on readiness standards of the test and 35 to 40% on supporting standards. So that theory has not changed. But what has changed is the number of items per reporting category. Notice that they're proportionally spread from all the reporting categories. So there will only be 29 multiple choice, 3 gradable, and 32 total items. However, there will be 6 field tested items as well. This is our lowest scoring readiness standards. Notice they're in deep red and orange, comparing 2015 and 16. Our supporting standards, and our process standards. The reason why I want to show these, and we did great in 3rd grade with process standards, what I wanted to show you this is because I know some of you will be preparing for STAR review for the last 6 weeks, and I just wanted you to see how we had some low areas. So you may want to focus on those lower SCs, especially with readiness standards. Now this kit should have been sent to you, and it'll have some great activities on readiness standards for you. Professional development, I just want you to be aware that camp is in Fort Worth this year at the Convention Center. It's only $185 to register for 3 wonderful filled days of the best math professional development you'll ever get. So please register, and if you do and you would like to volunteer, please let me know because I can find a spot for you. Thank you. Have a great day.